Imagine stepping into a 1950s classroom. The rules that governed schools back then might shock students today. From dress codes to discipline, education in the 50s was a world apart from what we know now. The 1950s school system reflected the values of its time: order, tradition, and clearly defined gender roles. These rules shaped every aspect of student life, from the moment they entered the school grounds to the way they interacted with teachers and each other. Let's start with appearance. Girls were required to wear dresses or skirts, no exceptions, jeans absolutely not. Boys had to keep their hair short and neatly trimmed. Colorful nail polish and makeup for girls, that was off limits too. These strict dress codes weren't just about looking tidy. They reinforced societal expectations for how boys and girls should present themselves. Gender separation was a key feature of 1950s schools. Boys and girls often used different entrances to the building. Even in physical education, the divide was clear. Girls focused on activities like dance and gymnastics, while boys engaged in wrestling and team sports. This separation extended to practical skills, too. Girls took home economics classes, learning cooking and sewing, while boys attended shop class for carpentry and mechanics. Discipline in 1950s schools was notably stricter than today. Corporal punishment was common, with misbehaving students potentially facing the paddle in the principal's office. Students were expected to sit up straight, address teachers as sir or ma'am, and stand when adults entered the room. The rule was simple: speak only when spoken to. Some rules from the 1950s seem particularly strange to us now. Married students were often required to leave school, as marriage and education were seen as separate paths. Some schools even included mandatory military drills for boys, reflecting the era's emphasis on patriotism and readiness. School events like dances came with early curfews, ensuring students were home well before midnight. Dating was a structured affair, with public displays of affection frowned upon, and school dances carefully chaperoned. Teachers in the 1950s were seen as powerful authority figures. Their word was law in the classroom, and students knew that being sent to the principal's office meant serious trouble. Looking back at these 1950s school rules gives us a fascinating glimpse into a different era. While some practices might seem overly strict or outdated now, they reflect the values and expectations of the time. The contrast with today's educational environment highlights just how much society has changed in the decades since. These rules from the past remind us that education is always evolving, shaped by the values and needs of each generation. While we may have moved away from many of these practices, understanding them helps us appreciate the progress we've made and the freedom students enjoy today.